I think my favorite may have been the sudden death overtime, but still, Kevin Durant dominated the conversation at Summer League. And with so many questions flying around, it's time to parse out what we know, what we think, and then what we want to happen with Kevin Durant. So I want to start with what we know, and let's start with the man there's no one who knows more than him, who is more plugged in the NBA. It's senior insider Adrian Wojnarowski. And Woj, you were in Vegas along with the entire NBA world. What's the latest with Kevin Durant?
And Malika, the Nets asking price for Kevin Durant remains steep, and they're trying to await teams and trying to get teams to meet that price, and that's certainly multiple draft picks, all-star level players. Listen, they want a return, that speaks to the stature of who Kevin Durant is, where he is in his career. 34 years old, a player, with 4 years left on his contract. They don't have to be in a rush to do a deal. They do have time on their side, especially because of the time of the year this is. And again, a player with 4 years left on his deal. And Sean Marks came out to Vegas with the intent of talking with other team executives about Kevin Durant. That's been going on. But the Nets asking price, certainly, it is steep, and it is, I think, going to allow this to be a process that goes on, because there's really no motivation for the Nets to rush into a deal or to move quickly on a deal unless it's something they consider, something of a monumental return for Durant.
So general manager Sean Marks is out in Las Vegas, and so is Kyrie Irving. He was there for a couple of days. We watched him take in a few games. What more can you tell us about where things stand with him?
Yeah, Brooklyn's really focused on Kevin Durant and trying to figure out if there's a deal to be had for him in the marketplace. I think Kyrie Irving is on the back burner of that. There were conversations with the Lakers last week. I'm told that that's not continued. I think both sides know where they stand. And I think for the Nets, getting a clear indication of what the future looks like with Kevin Durant before they make any decision on how Kyrie Irving fits into that. That's the sense other teams have with the situation, and I think it's the sense of what the Nets are doing. So I think their focus with the Nets right now is figuring out, is there a deal out there for Kevin Durant? And I think Kyrie Irving is secondary to that, and I think his future may be, decided off of how the Nets operate and the kind of decisions they make around KD.
Woj, thank you so much for that. Enjoy the rest of Summer League and Las Vegas if you can. So that's exactly what we know. And I want to shift a little bit to what we think, but we just heard something very interesting from Woj. We had talked in the past about whether or not we could have seen Kyrie as the first domino to fall instead of Kevin Durant, and now it seems that that is the inverse. So I do want to bring in someone who's able to prognosticate not only what's going on in Utah, but the entire league. It's senior writer Brian Windhorst. And Brian, based on what you are hearing, what do you think is going to happen with Kevin Durant and Kyrie here?
Yeah, we're probably into a stalemate here, Malika. It's not unusual from what we've seen in other star trades in other years. The Kawhi Leonard trade to Toronto is an example of this. Dwight Howard about a decade ago with something that didn't happen to Los Angeles until August, where their asking price and the market value there's a delta in between, and it takes an event in some cases to make those things fall together. In this case, what we might watch for is any communication from Kevin Durant himself about if he were to come out and say his feelings about potentially returning to the Nets, for example, which is something that hasn't been ruled off the table if the Nets can't find a deal that they like. Or maybe a comment about what teams he may or may not have interest in. But that may not happen at all. And nothing may happen for a while. There may be a decision by the Nets at some point to reduce what they're looking for. Yeah. But they don't have to do that. Certainly shouldn't do that this early in the process. So my guess is we're going to be stuck here for a while until something else comes in and changes the situation.
Stuck watching, waiting, and listening to see what happens with Kevin Durant and with Kyrie Irving here. Thanks, Brian. Please do not go too far because we're going to get into so much more here on NBA Today. But I also want to know what we want to happen. And this is sort of threefold, because I imagine what Kevin Durant wants, what the Brooklyn Net wants, and what fans want, it could potentially be different. But those first two, they need to line up in order for us to see a trade. So what should we want to happen, Kendrick Perkins?
Well, what I want to happen is I want Kevin Durant to go to the Phoenix Suns and play alongside Devin Booker and CP3 and be coached by Monty Williams. I want Kyrie Irving playing alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Again, when Kyrie Irving played alongside LeBron James in the playoffs, their record was 39-13. Kyrie Irving that was at his stage of his career where he was the most consistent for us playing at an elite level. Now, I say that to say this, Malika. We are still talking about Kevin Durant. Giannis and Dwight Howard, at the time that they got traded, was nowhere in the stratosphere of Kevin Durant. So what this is telling me is, again, what I said a week ago to you, is that teams are reluctant to give up their young superstars. And now I'm starting to question, what is the real value of a 34-year-old Kevin Durant and how he's viewed throughout the NBA? I always use this analogy. It's a difference, but it's a difference between being popular and powerful. Being powerful means you move the needle and you move the needle fast. Right now, Kevin Durant don't look powerful.
Well, we know, you mentioned the Phoenix Suns, that they are one of the preferred landing spots for Kevin Durant, but they also have a domino that needs to fall, and it's DeAndre Ayton, right? So, Brian, how is his future playing a role in all of this?
Yeah, so he's really been in this restricted free agency limbo, Malika, which we sometimes see for players in this position. And the reason this is complicating is because as a member of the Phoenix Suns, as they're having potential discussions with the Nets about Kevin Durant, his free agency was sort of tied up in it. And while the Nets may not necessarily want to sign and trade for DeAndre Ayton, a potential trade for DeAndre Ayton for other pieces could potentially have been involved in a Durant deal. But that may be running out of time on that because the Indiana Pacers over the weekend finalized their trade with Malcolm Brogdon with the Boston Celtics. That opened up a bunch of salary cap space. Now, they're not quite at the max salary cap space that DeAndre Ayton has been known to want. But the Pacers have met with Ayton. They have interest in Ayton. And they have had some discussions progressing towards potentially an offer sheet with DeAndre Ayton. And the whole league is keeping an eye on that to see if the Pacers actually go ahead and give the offer sheet, because they're an organization that typically doesn't give out offer sheets. And two, if that happens, whether or not the Suns would match. But either way on that, in the event of an offer sheet, he can't be traded. He can't be traded by the Suns. He can't be traded by the Pacers until January 15th. It would essentially take him out of this process altogether. And if the Suns end up matching and keeping him, having him on their books for whatever that salary would be, would potentially be a factor in how much they could trade for Kevin Durant in some sort of deal.
Perk, how do you digest all this?
How I digest food. Real fast. So, but look, here's the question. Here's the question that I have, that I'm being serious. At what point, though, right, as the season starts to come, like for us getting closer to training camp, and say that a deal has not been made and KD hasn't been traded yet, when are teams going to start deciding to say, you know what, we got to worry about now and worry about what's going on in our organization and start actually not even entertaining the Brooklyn Nets for us Kevin Durant? Like, I believe it's going to come a point. So, Malika, I'm asking you and Brian, do y'all have like an idea, or can y'all help me out with that? Because if I'm in the front office, sooner or later I'm gonna say, you know what, I got to worry about what I'm gonna do with this squad right now. Okay,
Sure.
I put an offer out there. Brooklyn didn't want it. I got to move forward.
Well, I think that, Brian, and you can speak to this as well, but being out in Las Vegas for a couple of days, the sense that I got is it would happen in weeks, or we would be going back to potentially training camp and seeing some familiar faces like Kevin Durant in a Brooklyn Nets uniform. But when the season starts and folks see how their teams are shaping up, what's missing and what's not, then you can see more movement. And that's whether it's with someone like Kevin Durant or with someone else. Brian, what's your sense there?
It's just so unusual, Malika, to have a star player with 4 years on his contract ask for this type of trade. And I know we saw this last year with Ben Simmons, but this is even a different level. The players that we have seen ask for trades in the past, I mentioned Kawhi Leonard earlier, have had 1 year or maybe 1 year and a little bit extra on their contract. And that changes the leverage play. That is something that we are a little bit in uncharted territory. And that is why the Nets, and it's justifiable, are asking for a price here. But the offers are coming in here.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know where that's going to, there's no roadmap right now to see where that's going to go.
But Brian, if memory serves, with Kawhi, the Raptors, they came in with an offer. It wasn't necessarily taken up immediately. There was some time that passed. They saw the rest of the offers that came in. The Raptors offer, it didn't change. It was good, don't get me wrong, involving a DeMar DeRozan, someone who, number one, was beloved by the organization and is also an excellent player. But maybe it wasn't initially what they had in mind. And then a couple of months later, once sort of surveying the landscape, it was like, okay, now we can get this deal done.
Malika, that is exactly
this
right.
Is what I gotta say.
We know that Toronto is one of the teams that is bidding in here. And if Toronto was able to hold their price and end up getting Kawhi Leonard, why wouldn't they enter this? Why wouldn't Masai Ujiri wonder if he's got the best offer, maybe, if they wouldn't hold their price and maybe that would come down for Kevin Durant? Those are certainly positions that are easier to take in mid-July than in mid-August or even mid-September.
Perk?
I know I keep saying this and I'm sounding like a broken record, but we are talking about Kevin Durant. Like, I still can't, like, this doesn't make sense to me. Kevin Durant is on the market. Kevin Durant is available.
Yeah.
Like, what's Kevin Durant?
But give up
Easy
some of their
money
young
sniper.
stars, but Kevin also wants to play with those young stars. So that's the balance here, Perk, and we've talked about it since Kevin Durant requested that trade a week and change ago, is that the balance is that, yes, it's Kevin Durant, but if a team is to give up all of those young stars and all of those young assets, what is left to come back to? And that's what we're going to continue to keep tabs on. Coming up, though, on NBA Today, not all things have tournament in Lake Tahoe. I miss Tahoe. Warriors reporter Kendra Andrews joins Perk, Brian, and me now. Hey, Perk, I'd pay some good money to see you swing a golf club.
Not me. I tried it once, never again.
Never
I'm
again?
telling you, you don't want to see that.
No, I think
you don't want to see that.
I think I do. Steph, though, clearly enjoying his summer vacation, but some of the young Warriors, they are at work in Vegas at Summer League, including James Wiseman. He made his long-awaited return to the floor last night, played 20 minutes, scored 11 points. That's what the numbers say. But Kendra, what are the Warriors saying about his performance?
Yeah, Malika, there's just a great sense of relief, right, that James finally played an official game of basketball. It's been 3 months, I think, or maybe more, since he played those 3 G League games with the Warriors, the Santa Cruz Warriors. So there's just a great sense of relief. It's a lot of weight off of his shoulders and the Warriors' shoulders. And I spoke with a couple members of the coaching staff, and their sentiment is this: now we can finally see what we're actually working with and really start to figure out what James's role is going to be with this team next season. And they're really emphasizing the fundamentals with him. You know, be a big roller. It's been a while since the Warriors have had a good big roller. Set screens, be an elite rebounder. And James said, yeah, look, I only grabbed 2 boards in that game. I have to do better. And he said, there are a lot of areas of my game that I have to do better at. But of course, right, because as we said, it's been a year and a half since he's played an NBA game. But again, it's just relief and excitement that he's finally on the court. He cleared that hurdle, and now they can really start to work him up and figure out what his identity is going to be with this team.
Well, another Warrior that was on display was Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, a game-high 28 points. What's the plan for him, for both players, really, for the remainder of Summer League?
Well, the hope is that, the plan, I should say, is that Jonathan Kuminga and James Wiseman will play on Tuesday against the Celtics, along with Moses Moody, who did not play on Sunday because he was feeling under the weather. The Warriors would really like to see all 3 of those guys play together. The Warriors are going to have a practice here in Las Vegas in just a couple minutes, and that's going to give them a better evaluation of how each of them is doing and feeling. But the plan, the tentative plan, is for all 3 of those players to play on Tuesday, and then they'll go from there.
All 3 of those players, that's Kuminga, Wiseman, and who, Big Perk? Moses
Moody.
Moody
Moses.
M. That's what I'm going to call him.
Double M.
M.
All right,
And I'll leave it at that.
I'll be single M. Perk, if the Warriors are going to repeat as champions, though, who is more important, Wiseman or Kuminga?
I think it's Jonathan Kuminga. When you look at him, right? I watched him in Summer League, and I was impressed by his playmaking. Okay, his skill set is already there. He's athletic as hell, one of the most athletic players in the NBA today. And so when I look at Jonathan Kuminga and what he could bring to the table, being so versatile, being able to go out there and switch 1 through 5s on pick and rolls. Also being able, when the Warriors do go small, moving him to the 5 position, being that lob threat at the basket. Can I say this for a second? When I think about the Warriors, they have a unique situation like no other team in the NBA. They are set up for the next 10 years to be a title contender every single year. They're the only team in basketball that have a great mixture of veterans and young guys, with Looney, Draymond, Clay, and Steph being the mentors and being the leaders of the ship to mentor these young guys in Poole, Wiseman, Kuminga, Moses Moody, and all the rest of these young guys that's coming up under them. Once they pass the torch to them and take a back seat, the Warriors are going to be in great position for years to come.
Brian?
Yeah, Malika, so the guys that they lost, their role players, Otto Porter and Gary Payton II, are players that are filling a void that Kuminga needs to step into. They are going to count on him to play a role next year. And, Wiseman is, he's got incredible raw talent. Kuminga's gotten more, experience. They need him to play more. But I got to say, listening to this this podcast interview that the Warriors owner Joe Lacob gave, I mean, we already knew kind of how he felt about James Wiseman. But in that interview, you could just tell how excited he is about him. And he's effusive about him. He just had back surgery, but he went and watched him scrimmage 5-on-5 before the team even went to Vegas, and then made sure he was there yesterday to watch Wiseman's first game. So when the owner is such a believer in you and is excited about your potential, you're going to get opportunities at some point. So I think Kuminga will be the guy that's more in the rotation at the start, but I promise you Wiseman's going to get his chance.
Right. They still have Kevon Looney, who was incredible for them in the playoffs on their roster. So we'll see how that shakes out for the Warriors. It's been roughly, 8, 9, 10 minutes since we've talked about Kevin Durant. That's something that Golden State owner Joe Lacob did without really exactly doing on that podcast that you were talking about, Brian. So here he is with Tim Kawakami.
I'm not going to comment specifically on any player. You've heard, what this answer is going to be, which is we will always look at any opportunities to make ourselves better, to try to win a championship. And if we thought it was something better to do for the team, we would do it. We have to weigh short-term, long-term and all that. We have to weigh the financial obligations in both scenarios. But we will do all that and make the decision we feel is best.
So, Kendra, that sound has led to just a lot of discussion about the Warriors keeping the door open for a Durant return to the Bay Area. But how likely is that scenario?
Look, Malika, it's not very likely that there is going to be a Warriors and Kevin Durant reunion in Golden State. Have the Warriors made calls? Have they reached out? Have they talked about it? Yes, as every team in the league has done, as you guys have established on this show. And look, there are a lot of different layers to this of why Kevin Durant could or could not come back to the Warriors. At the end of the day, though, it comes down to the trade package. And again, you guys have outlined on this show, the Warriors could probably have one of the best offers to give the Nets, right? You have a package that would have to include Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and multiple first-round picks. But as Perk just laid out and as Brian just laid out, those guys are going to have big roles with the team.
Yeah.
Andrew Wiggins already had a big role. Jordan Poole has a contract. Both of those guys have contract extensions coming up. Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, James Wiseman, with the departures of GP2 and Otto Porter Jr., those guys are going to have increased roles. So it's not just about leveraging the future. It's about leveraging their present as well. And the Warriors really like this group that they have. They said they wanted to run it back with as many of these players as possible. And I don't see that changing right now.
Yeah, it feels a little bit unrealistic, even if you do have to make those calls. The Warriors, they're in an interesting situation. Obviously, they were the champs, and now we will see what pieces that they're able to run it back with, how big of a role that they play, obviously with Steph Curry leading that group. Kendra Andrews, thank you so much for spending some time with Bench. LeBron was on the opposite baseline, and the former MVPs I didn't see them talking at all. They left independently at different points in the game. Russell Westbrook left around halftime. LeBron James left toward the end of the game. Wendy, are you reading anything into this non-interaction?
Well, I think it's dangerous to totally read into something when you just see a slice of their lives. But one thing I think we can say is that last year, when Russell Westbrook was traded to the Lakers, LeBron and Russ were, spending a lot of time together, totally palling around Los Angeles, working out together. They were totally invested in building that relationship, and I think it's safe to say that that's turned a little bit frosty. And, the reality is this. The reality is that LeBron does want the Lakers roster improved. The way to do that is to trade Russell Westbrook. I don't think he's demanding Russell Westbrook to get traded. He just wants them to improve. I think the entire NBA knows that, including Russ. And I also think Russ, it's not even about LeBron. Russ is really trying to build his relationship with the new coaching staff. He's spent a lot of time with Darvin Ham to this point, and he was sitting on the bench, sort of acting like a player coach during that half he was there. And I think he was trying to send a message of being a team player, and he would have done that regardless of where LeBron was for that game.
Perk?
Well, let's just stop all the foolishness, okay? Here it is, all right? We all know that the Lakers want to get rid of Russell Westbrook. They want to trade him. Okay, let's get that out in the open. And we know that Russell Westbrook could feel the energy. And Russell Westbrook knows that. And guess what? The feelings are mutual because Russell Westbrook don't want to be there either. So at the end of the day, look, what we saw at the Summer League game, those guys sitting across from one another and not even going to greet one another in the public eye, to me, that speaks volumes to me, okay? Because guess what? With all the noise that's going on around the league and Kyrie Irving and things to that nature, if LeBron or Russ would have took the initiative to go over and greet one another and they would have been caught on camera or in the public eye having a conversation, it would have silenced a lot of the noise. Not all of it, but some of it. See, here's the thing now, and I said this again last week. The Lakers got to be very, very careful again because if they don't get Kyrie Irving, you do not want to disgruntle Russell Westbrook coming into training camp. And I think what Darvin Ham and his coaching staff are doing is doing a hell of a job by making sure they keep a great relationship with Russell Westbrook just in case.
Okay, so this whole situation, it calls for a little bit of chop it or drop it. I want to start right with the Lakers' new head coach, Darvin Ham. He was asked about Westbrook during last night's game. Take a listen to what he said.
Russ, in my opinion, man, he's in great shape. He's durable. And in this system, this 4-out, 1-in system, he's going to have a chance to screen and roll and make plays in the half row. He's going to have a chance to run on the break, slash, get layups. He's going to have a chance to sprint out to the corner, flatten the defense, get corner threes, as well as the things that he already does well in terms of getting the ball and pushing the pace and pushing the tempo. So I'm excited as hell to have Russell Westbrook on our team.
All right, Brian, what do you think?
I want to chop it, but I think I have to drop it because he's talking about Russell Westbrook being a screener. Russell played 78 games last year, and he set 57 screens, 57 total screens. Now, granted, he's going to obviously be in a different role, I suppose, but my gosh, look at the rank. Now, he actually was a better corner three-point shooter than I thought. He shot 45% in the corner, and Darvin Ham, I'm sure, knows that, and I'm sure he's taking advantage of that, but he also is just a 29% catch-and-shoot player. Asking Russell Westbrook to play that is so different from the way he's played his whole career. I can't see it.
Well, the rule in chop it or drop it is if one person drops it, then we drop it. But since I'm the host, I'm just going to chop just one little smidge of it. And it's this. It's good. No, it's good. It's that I do appreciate what Darvin Ham is doing here, and that is when we look at the relationship, and I know our Lakers reporter Dave McMenamin mentioned this on the show the other day, when you look at the relationship between Frank Vogel and Russell Westbrook, it was flawed sort of from the beginning, and Darvin Ham is not making that same mistake, we can call it that, if you will, in this situation. Okay, now we can move on. Perk, let's switch it up to the all-star point guard that we know isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So take a listen to what Damian Lillard said at a news conference announcing his 2-year extension with the Blazers.
I've always said that if I do something that goes against who I am and say I do end up winning, I know me better than any of y'all know me. So I'd be happy with it because I don't think anybody wouldn't be happy being a champion, but it wouldn't be as fulfilling to me as I would want that moment to be. As long as I have an opportunity to do it, a good opportunity to do it, I'm willing to go out however.
Perk, chop it or drop it. Do you agree with Dame's thought process here?
Well, can I pull a Richard Jefferson here? Because I wanted to chop it, but I think I'm going to drop it. But I'm glad Dame knows himself better than everybody else. You're supposed to know that, okay? But I will say this to Dame. I'm glad he got his letters, but I still wish he would have got out of Portland. I think he was in the same position as Kevin Garnett when he left Minnesota. Nobody would have looked at him any differently. But I think now he has to stay in Portland because he has preached too much publicly about loyalty and staying committed and getting it out the mud and all that. So he has to stay there. Otherwise, he's going to be contradicting himself.
All right, so from Lillard to Wall. These are John Wall's first comments since officially signing with the Los Angeles Clippers. Take a listen.
I don't have to be Batman every night for us to win. You know what I mean, that's the ultimate goal for me. Is like, this point in my career, I don't want to have to be the Batman every night to try to win. You know what I mean? On our team that we have, I think anybody can be Batman. For me, I'm happy because I don't have to have the best player guarding me every night like I have my whole career. You telling me the third best defender gonna have to guard me? Good luck.
So on a team that already has a Batman and a Robin, who do the Clippers need Wall to be, Brian?
Alfred? I mean, I will say he hasn't been Batman in a few years, so that wasn't really an option at this point. But I will say that, he was able to not only pick a team where he has a high degree of success possibility, low downside, he got all his money. He got all his money. He took a $6 million buyout and signed for $6 million back. I don't think many people thought he was going to get all his money and get out of Houston. So you got to give props to him and for working that out.
Perk?
I will say this. John Wall, before he could be Alfred, he got to make sure he beat Reggie Jackson out of that starting spot first. Because remember what T. Lue said. They got to compete to see who's going to be the starting point guard. But whether he's starting or not, he's still going to bring something unique to the table. And again, the Clippers have so much firepower, so much depth at the wing position. He's going to flourish well with the way that he plays the game of basketball.
Well, speaking with Ty Lue out in Las Vegas, I know he feels good about his squad this year. All right, lastly, Perk. Take a listen to what John Morant had to say when he was asked about playing in Michael Jordan's era.
I heard he was like just how he, go about the game, just that mindset he had. Mm-hmm. I would like to, play against him. So.
This time you're not saying, I would have cooked her.
I would have cooked him too.
You would have cooked Michael Jordan?
Man, nobody got more confidence than 12.
Perk, chop it or drop it.
Man, look, I want to hear what y'all got to say. Listen, because the way I'm taking this right now is Ja is both confident and crazy. Okay, so I want to chop it because I want to hear what you got to say, Malika, and I want to hear what Wendy got to say.
Brian?
With my Jordan face on The Last Dance, that's what that does. Hey, Ja couldn't even say that with a straight face. He knew it was so ridiculous that he couldn't even say it without laughing. So props to him, but even he knows that's not true. But it doesn't matter because it's never going to happen.
Yeah,
so he can say anything.
Ja's chutzpah is what the Grizzlies, that's the energy that they have, and that's the energy that they need to have, particularly in a very tough Western Conference. Coming up, though, on Yo Quiero. All right, Paolo Banchero was rightly regarded as one of the most NBA-ready prospects heading into last month's draft, rather. And of all the tools in his bag that were on display over the course of the weekend in Vegas, and some of the player comps that jumped off the screen, I mean, you got to see this. Paolo's high-level footwork and ability to score, it was obvious, right, during his freshman season at Duke. But this turnaround jumper from Banchero, it stirred up plenty of conversation on Twitter for how eerily similar it was to one of the greatest scoring forwards of all time, one Mr. Carmelo Anthony. And then the facet of Paolo's game that was arguably even more impressive, it was his playmaking. I mean, he was averaging 6 assists a game, doubling the 3.2 he averaged at Duke. And then this crossover pass, I mean, that cross course pass, all right. That looks a little bit like something we saw from LeBron James. And arguably, the biggest play that Banchero made over the weekend was the game-saving block in sudden death. And this block, it kept the Magic alive and showed Banchero's prowess on both ends of the court. And I sat down with Paolo this weekend to talk about him and his mindset heading into his first summer league.
Banchero with another little bit of room service at the other end. Okay, we're in Vegas, so we'll take some showtime. He'll be here all week.
Here with the #1 pick, Paolo Banchero. And Paolo, we're sitting here in Las Vegas. What did you come to Summer League wanting to accomplish?
Just win first off. You know, I've been saying all week, we trying to win every game. But really just feel it out, you know, feel the NBA game out, what works, what's not working. And then just get myself back playing. You know, it's been a while since I've played, so just getting back in playing shape and having fun.
I want to go back to draft night for a moment, if we could. A lot of the mock drafts, they had you going 2 or 3, and then you hear your name called #1 overall. What was the feeling in your stomach as you were sitting there when the commissioner said the pick is in, and then it was your name?
Yeah, no, it was just overwhelmed with emotions. You know, I've never cried tears of joy, and I was telling everyone I wouldn't, but as soon as it happened, I just literally couldn't control it. It was a moment I'll never forget, and definitely just a once-in-a-lifetime type of thing. To
what degree do you feel other top prospects, when they're going up against you, trying to sort of prove themselves in that matchup?
Yeah, no, I'm going to get everybody's best shot.
Hey, here I am, Zay.
He's got to check Banchero here.
That's a problem.
That's a big-time problem.
But I'm going to give them my best shot as well. You know, I have a chip on my shoulder. Like you said, I was #3 in the mock draft, so that was my chip all throughout, you know, pre-draft, you know, was being #3. And I still have that chip, you know. I just want to go out there and prove, you know, why I'm the #1 pick every game.
Is there any player that you're most looking forward to playing against in the NBA?
Yeah, I would just say all the elite forwards, whether it's LeBron, Tatum, Anthony Davis, Giannis, just all those guys. You know, those are the guys that, you know, you're using summer league and training camp to get ready for, is playing against those guys.
When the schedule comes out, are you going to be circling those games, looking at which dates you're going to be playing those gentlemen?
Definitely, we'll take a good look at the schedule when it first comes out, you know, just to see, you know, because, I mean, the NBA, every game's going to be a matchup.
Yep.
You know, so it's just looking, okay, I got this guy this night, and the next night I got this guy, so it's like, you know, you just got to be ready.
Lastly, fill in the blank for me if you could. My rookie year will be a success in my eyes if blank.
If I just affect, you know, the Magic in a winning way, you know, we have a much better season than last year.
Banchero inside, Terry got it, game over, time to go home.
I want to be a winner, you know, a guy who people love to come watch play, who people love to play with, just a guy who attracts everyone. You know, just my game's fun to watch, and, you know, everyone wants to, you know, see me play.
We can't wait to see it in the NBA. Paolo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
However, while that's definitely a good start, there's still room for more improvement. Unless players on the free agent market sign for minimum deals, the Lakers will have to attack the trade market. And the primary trade asset they have to work with is Talen Horton-Tucker. Horton-Tucker is only 21 years old, and while he has struggled to figure things out consistently, there's still plenty of potential there. Here are 3 NBA trades involving Horton-Tucker that would help the Lakers. This trade may not seem enticing for Lakers fans, and that's because it's not very flashy. Olynyk is a very bland name, but he would most definitely contribute to winning basketball in LA. He's more of a center, but his above-average playmaking and ability to space the floor would allow him to share the floor with Bryant, Jones, and Anthony Davis. For the Pistons, their trade for Nerlens Noel means that they have solid big man depth on the roster. Trading Olynyk for a young project player and a second-rounder would make a lot of sense for them. This deal makes a ton of sense for both sides. The Lakers would be getting an established veteran that can help their rotation, while the Magic would get a young wing they could take a chance on. Ross hasn't been the most efficient player in recent years, but in a limited role off the bench in LA, he could be a solid piece. At the very least, he's an experienced veteran that would be nice to have on the roster. He's earned the nickname the Human Torch in recent years thanks to his innate ability to get hot at a moment's notice. Having a player like that would be useful on nights where some of LA's other scorers go cold. On the flip side, Horton Tucker would get a new chance to thrive in Orlando. The Magic are in the beginning stages of a rebuild, so adding young pieces would make sense, especially when all they'd be trading is a veteran. Orlando would also pick up a second-round pick in this deal, as Horton Tucker has lost a ton of value over time. Any picks they can snag would be worth it at this point. Despite their seemingly conflicting interests, Ross seems happy in Orlando, and they seem to like him, too. But if